Hello and welcome to episode 58 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. 58, that's actually mind-blowing. When I just said it out loud then, 58 episodes of this podcast is out there right now. That's insane, because this is supposed to be a side project to Skip the End, which is my main movie podcast. And now we're already at nearly 60 episodes of Mark and Me. It is mind-blowing. And as you may have read last week, I've decided to make this a weekly podcast. Now that's not going to be forever because Skip the End takes a lot of work and we release 2 podcasts a month. Now I'm going to be releasing 4 podcasts of Mark and Me, so that's 6 podcasts a month, as well as holding a full-time job down and living life as a normal adult. So it's quite a lot on my plate, but for the next few months, and that's not going to be forever, I will be delivering a weekly episode of the Mark and Me podcast for you all. Now on today's episode, I'm going to be joined by Chris LoPorto. He is the lead singer of the band Can't Swim, and a band that I'm not going to claim that I was there at the start and I've loved them all my life, but they're a band that I discovered late last year, and since I've been listening to them non-stop. I think they're absolutely fantastic. They're one of the best bands to come out of New Jersey, and I'm thrilled that they're going to be on today's episode. Now, as you know, I always like to talk about the previous guest, and I was joined by Tracy Morgan, a very close friend that I grew up with. And when I put the episode out, obviously there's been quite a few big names recently, like Billy Mitchell. We've had people like Joe Cornish, Ricky Tomlinson. I was a bit worried because it wasn't a fact that I didn't think the interview was going to be very good, because I have a lot of faith in Tracy and I'm absolutely buzzing by her book that she's just released. But I just thought, are people still going to tune in for the less known people? And you guys proved me completely wrong. You're absolutely awesome as always, and you all tuned in. The numbers were absolutely fantastic. It's probably actually been the episode that's had the biggest response in the way of so much interaction. I've seen so many people going on Amazon and buying the book and then posting pictures of them reading it or ordering it off Amazon and all these different things, and it's actually quite flattering to see, and I felt really humbled to see all this because Tracy's such a good friend and she's worked so hard for so many years. And I know, because we've been talking since the episode came out, she's been blown away by the response. So a huge thank you to everyone that tuned in. An even bigger thank you to everyone that then went and invested their money in the new book, Searching for Candy. And again, thanks for supporting this podcast. It really does blow my mind every day how many people listen. So as I just said a couple of moments ago, today's music, and I'm going to be talking to Chris from the band Can't Swim. A great interview, really positive, and I can't wait to get to it. So let's just do that. Here's me and Chris from the band Can't Swim talking all things music. So Chris, thanks for joining me today on the Mark and Me podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So I believe you're currently on tour, but what I want to do for the listeners out there right now is take it right back to the start. At what age were you when you were kind of getting into the music scene? Was there bands that you were watching as a young age or certain albums that made you want to be in a band?
Yeah, certainly. My Uncle Mike was the catalyst or the reason why I found an interest in music. He played drums in bands, and I would go to my grandma's house and I would hear them playing in the basement, and it sparked my interest. So yeah, I guess in the beginning it was a very like punk rock or like hardcore bands that kind of got me into the whole thing. But then when high school turned around, and yeah, I guess I just listened to what everybody was listening to, and I started playing in my own band and pretty much haven't stopped since.
Can you remember one of those first kind of gigs you went to where you just thought to yourself, this is what I want, this is in my blood, I need to be on stage?
You know, actually it was funny, I didn't have like an older brother or anything, so I didn't really go to shows until I played one. Like I started playing in a local band and we were practicing and stuff in basements, and I remember them coming and telling me, like, oh, you know, we have a show. And I was like, a show? Like, what do you mean? Like, Madison Square Garden? Like, a rock show? Like, how does this work? And then we went into, like, this little, you know, teen center, like, you know, like, little hall and played a show. And I remember being like, oh, that's what it's like. I had no clue. And, yeah, I think right from then I realized it was for me. I loved, like, the community of it and the camaraderie between the other musicians, and I just loved playing, you know. It was on the drums, but I just loved, like, you know, sitting there and working on stuff with other musicians. It all seemed very appealing to me at a young age.
So when you were obviously starting out as a band and you were kind of getting you're kind of establishing your own sound, was there Was there other albums you used to listen to where you were like, I want to sound like this, or were you trying the whole time to be your own kind of individual band?
So with Can't Swim, it was my first leap into songwriting. I never wrote lyrics. I never wrote any type of melody. I was just always strictly the drummer. So in the very beginning of Can't Swim, it was more of a learning curve. I was just trying to figure out chords on the guitar and learn how to sing and practice vocals and stuff. So I don't think there was much of a conscious effort to be like, hey, I want to sound like X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been obviously themes in my life just through interests of music. The Cure, being from your lovely country, The Cure was a very big influence on me. I still listen to them probably every day. Tons of things. Yeah, punk rock, more like Alkaline Trio. I've probably seen Alkaline Trio like 20 times in my life. I've always loved like the gothic aesthetic and just how honest of a songwriter he was. So I think those elements definitely creep into Can't Swim. If it's conscious or not conscious, it definitely gets in there somehow. So, but in the very beginning, it was more just like, how do I write a song? And that's how Can't Swim started.
So then when you wrote enough songs where you could have your album, your debut, Fail You Again, was actually produced by Danny, who's in the band, right?
Yes, sir. That is true.
So a lot of bands out there, usually for their debut, probably don't want the responsibility of having to produce an album themselves. They probably want to have someone else, take control and not be part of the band. Was that quite a tough one, having someone in the band with so much pressure on them?
To be fair, it's on the contrary. In my opinion, it was, I mostly write the songs and demo them myself, and I couldn't think more highly of Danny. I think he's incredibly talented, and I feel very lucky to make music with him. So when that became an option, when Danny reached out his hand and was like, hey, I love these demos you're doing. I would love to produce them and do this to them. I was just completely excited and very confident in Danny's ability. So I agree, and I definitely see where you're coming from, that it does seem to add some sort of stress to it, but it was nothing but the opposite. Danny's very easy to work with, but he's also has a lot to say, and he has a lot to offer my demos, and I think it really has become the sound of Can't Swim. I couldn't imagine doing it with somebody else, because I think what makes our sound, quote unquote, is me coming up with an idea, Danny and the rest of the guys manipulating it, and that's the final result. So it was lovely. We did the EP that way, we did Fail You Again that way, and then we even did the newest record that way. So it's always been in-house. It's always been Can't Swim making the songs.
And you don't think that's ever going to change?
I have no idea. If you told me 2 or 3 years ago I would be doing a band that I was the singer of, I would call you crazy. So I don't know what the next record will sound like. I certainly don't know what the process will be, but I love working with Danny, and yeah, who knows? But I guess we'll find out in a year or so.
So you just mentioned, obviously, your latest album, This Too Won't Pass, which is produced, obviously, again by Danny, and it sounds great. But for me as a listener, on the other side, it sounds like an album that's a lot more focused, and I mean that with full respect. When you try to kind of follow up that second album, every band, every musician always says it's kind of hard because you've laid your foundation, but did you find it a bit more challenging, or was it were you very confident off the back of your debut?
I had a lot of songs, I had a lot of demos. I sent Danny way too much material. I think I sent him like 23 or 24 demos. And yeah, to answer your question, I think it was a little bit of both. I obviously wanted to make it great. I knew it was very important for our career. But we also, right off the bat, seemed more focused. Instead of saying like, oh, I really like this song, let's put it on the record, we were more like, does this sound like Can't Swim? Does this sound like our band? Can we pull off this live? So it was easier and quicker to cut out the stuff that we didn't feel very connected to. I couple of my demos maybe were a little poppy or a little slow tempo or whatever it was, and the guys would be like, oh, this is great, I love this song, but it doesn't sound like us in a packed room playing to kids. Like, this doesn't sound like our band. It doesn't feel like our band. So with this record, it was, yeah, like you said, that's the perfect word. It was definitely more focused, and which I think was easier, because sometimes if you have no borders around your art, it can get pretty outlandish. It's hard to focus, and it's hard to make a decision when you're just like, oh, this sounds good, let's do this. So I think with this 2 Won't Pass, it was easy. I felt very comfortable. I felt very connected with the songs, and picking the 10 that we wanted to put on there was not a battle. All of the guys kind of had a very similar album track listing, so it was nice. It was I felt like we were doing what we were supposed to do, and I feel like this is our most Can't Swim sounding album yet.
A few of my favourite tracks on the album, one that stood out to me was My Queen. I thought it was a very, very honest track for you, and you seem to wear your heart on your sleeve, and the fact that you're that honest and let your guard down and kind of you take responsibility for some of your breakups, that's pretty deep, and not many people are that willing to share those sort of lyrics and that depth with the world. So it must be quite I don't know how you'd even approach writing these lyrics and kind of sharing them with so many people.
Yeah, man, it definitely has its pros and its cons. I definitely agree. But kind of like what you were saying before, going back to what made me fall in love with, I guess, independent music was the honesty. I loved how relatable all of those bands were when I was growing up, and you find solace in the fact that, I'm some 18-year-old kid going through a breakup for the first time, or going through a loss of a family member for the first time, and you put your favorite records on, and you realize that this dude was going through it too. So with Can't Swim, I've always felt it my duty to kind of write about realistic events that have happened to me. And yeah, they say it's therapeutic to make a negative into a positive, and I agree. My Queen is definitely very, very personal. It's a very true event, and it's interesting, now that I've had such a habit of writing Can't Swim songs, that stuff kind of just comes out whenever the music is coming about. So I have a melody in my head, or I have a guitar riff in my head, and the more honest the lyric is, the more it seems easier to fit into the music. So I guess it's conscious and subconscious. It just kind of comes out whenever I'm writing. But yeah, it is sometimes pretty vulnerable, sharing it with thousands of people.
Tracks like Sometimes You Meet the Right People at the Wrong Time, do you get a lot of feedback from people that you meet saying, my God, you're reading my mind, or, I can't believe how much I can relate to those lyrics? Because it seems very personal, but again, I'm sure everyone's been through that.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, I think we even released the song titles before we released the song, and I had a few kids come and tell me that song title was even, hitting them kind of hard. Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people growing up have had that feeling in many ways, in romantic ways, and in regular friendship ways. And that song, too, I actually, it's funny you picked up on both of those, because I think My Queen and Sometimes are probably, the harder ones to get through. But like I said, that's kind of the makeup of what Can't Swim is, and if a kid can relate to it, then I think I did my job. I think that's kind of how I look at it.
So how do you find the process of obviously writing this record, recording, the long process of finishing it, but then taking it out there and kind of winning people over with these new songs? Because you know what it's like for bands, everyone wants to hear the singles they've heard off the debut, but then you're trying to get these new songs incorporated into your set. Are they reacting as well as you want?
Yeah, it's funny, a couple days ago we were talking about that, and I think we were playing Los Angeles, and I think Sometimes You Meet had only been out for maybe like 2 weeks, and it was so loud. Like, as soon as the first little line comes in, kids were jumping off the stage and singing along. So it's pretty amazing. I love the fact that I get to do Can't Swim in this era because of, with the internet and how easy it is to stream. I think kids can familiarize themselves so quickly with material that they enjoy, and we put that record out. I don't even think it's been a month, and the reaction has been so rad and so cool. So nothing but positivity. I couldn't have asked for better response, and in the Can't Swim camp here, we've been very happy and very excited to play the songs, and seeing kids react to them in a positive way has been pretty cool.
So you guys all grew up in New Jersey. How did you find the scene growing up? Did you always think that you might need to leave and go, into like New York more, or try and go out and break away from the nest, or did you feel that you were in the right place for your music and your kind of vision of what you wanted for the band?
Sure. I mean, Can't Swim started very abruptly, and we got a record deal and got, nationwide tours before we even put a song out, which is very lucky and very blessed. So we have probably played England just as much as we have played New Jersey. We don't really have much of a, I don't know, quote-unquote home base, just because ever since we started playing shows, they've been all around the world. But growing up, New Jersey, I think, was a fantastic hub of every kind of music that you want. And New York and Philadelphia are stuck only 45 minutes away from where I grew up, so it was very easy to get into bands and play with bands. I feel very lucky, actually. Now that we tour so much in the middle of the country, and you realize how much New Jersey and New York really have to do with music, and it was very easy for me to find an interest in it because it was so abundant.
How do you find touring? I mean, every person wants to be in a band, every person wants to go on stage, but the reality of it, it's not always as glorified as we general public think. Do you enjoy it, or is it very testing at times?
I totally agree with that. I definitely think it has a stigma or a shine over it where this is a fantasy life. And luckily enough, man, honestly, for me, it's kind of funny to say, but it is that for me. I've always wanted to share my art with people and connect with people. But just like anything, it definitely has its cons. We missed Thanksgiving this year with our families. I've missed countless weddings, birthdays. I might even miss Christmas because of the travel time coming home from this tour. So there's a lot of stuff, having a girlfriend, as you can probably tell in my lyrics, or it is pretty difficult to get going and keep, but it is very lucky. I feel very blessed to do what we do, and being something special for a kid, even on a Tuesday night in some backwards middle of nowhere town in some room, and he's singing his heart out or she's singing their heart out, is very special, and it's something that I hope I get to do for many years to come. But I definitely agree, it's definitely not for everybody, and there are many other ways to live your life in a rewarding way. I think kids, sometimes maybe get into it and realize hey, why isn't this what I thought it would be? It's why are we sleeping on the floor, and I'm going to be 30 years old this year and my back hurts. But for me, it's everything I've always wanted, and it's very rewarding.
Do you find the way that the music industry has gone, that you don't have these massive bands being made overnight like Metallica anymore, and you have to tour because of Spotify and all the streaming? There's not this big paycheck?
Yeah, man. I mean, we were talking about this recently as well. Every band, it's interesting how they find different avenues. You'll have a band opening a show, getting paid $100 a night, and their merch has this special thing about it, and they'll sell $5,000 worth of T-shirts a night, and the headliner will sell $50 of CDs. So all bands find different ways to be successful, but I do think with how easy it is to access music, it definitely makes the playing field that more competitive, because you can't just have some big time label put a bunch of money into some good looking guys or girls and expect it to blow up, because a kid can make a song on his laptop, on an airplane, and have 1 million streams by the weekend. So it's very fascinating to me how careers and bands' longevity kind of get carved out in different ways with how readily available the internet is. But with Can't Swim, I think we depend on the live show and connecting with the kids, so we have to tour. There's no radio hope of getting on MTV one day. We don't ever think that way. We love to tour, and it's the makeup of what our band is. So it's a lot of sleepless nights, and it's a lot of backache, but it is what we do.
Now that you're touring and you've obviously shared the stage with some amazing bands at festivals and events, what's some of the bands that have absolutely blown you away that you've been touring with?
I think every time somebody asks me that, I immediately say Microwave. We have toured with them many, many a times, and even last night watching them, it blows me away equally every time. I think he is an incredibly talented songwriter. I think he's an amazing singer. The rest of the band is playing with such passion every night, and it's very inspiring, which is bizarre to say about my close friends, but I think they're an incredible band. Even on this tour alone, there's another band from Australia called Trophy Eyes. Very, very good band. The singer is very theatrical. He's such a performer. It's very inspiring to watch. He's a great singer, but he also puts on a great show. There's been a ton, man. We did a tour with Creeper in England.
Awesome.
Massive shows, but also very similar in my regard, like such a performance. They had lights and actors and actresses, and it's cool when you see punk bands kind of take their art to like the next level, and I think Creeper and Trophy Eyes, and they really are trying to do it on a mainstream level, and I think they're doing a great job at it. So I think there's a lot of great stuff going on in this scene, and I agree. We've played with a lot of talented acts, and it makes you feel like you got to get off your ass and work hard. It's like, damn, look at these guys. We got to one up them. It's a healthy competitive type of feeling.
Are there any bands out there that you would love to tour with that you still haven't, that are on the tick list?
Sure. There's been a couple talks of bands that I grew up listening to, like we almost opened up for Thrice, and we got offered to do Alkaline Trio show that we might get, and we've even toured with Newfound Glory, which was pretty cool. Obviously I grew up in high school listening to them, and there's been a few bands that I've always looked up to growing up that we've gotten to play with, which is pretty cool. Another perk of doing Can't Swim.
I want to see Can't Swim and Thrice now joint tour, because that would be fucking awesome.
That would be pretty cool.
I absolutely love Thrice. They are literally, oh god, what a band. Still going strong now.
I know, so awesome, man.
Do you ever feel much pressure as the songwriter? Because obviously it all depends on you. You've done 2 great albums, you've got your EP, but there's only so many experiences that you're going to run out of, and you're not going to be creating the same instances. You're not going to have any more breakups maybe in the next couple of years.
Yeah. It's funny, dude. It's funny you brought that up. I was a couple months back. That came up between my mom and I was kind of like having a conversation of like, does fucked up things have to happen to artists to make them good? Like, am I ever going to escape this type of thing? And she kind of looked at me and she's like, you got plenty of shit to write about, Chris. I was like, all right, I guess you got a point. So I mean, I say this all the time as well, like starting this band at 18 years old, I definitely would feel that pressure of what you just said. It's like, hell, like what has even happened to write about? Like, I got an F on my report card, like who? But now that I'm going to be 30 years old this year, it's been a long life, and I've luckily and not luckily have experienced a ton of different things and made relationships and experienced so many different people in my life. So I have no shortage of things to write about. So it's an interesting concern, but I think I have plenty of material in the back. So I don't think Can't Swim's done just yet.
You're quite a unique band in the way that, like you said, you had this record deal and you hadn't recorded your album, and most bands have got a few EPs of their own, or they're doing their own thing and trying to build. You guys kind of levitated at quite a fast rate.
Yeah.
What advice would you give for those bands that are still slaving away and working their arse off and playing the same sort of nightclubs to 50 people tops, you know?
Yeah, man. No, I mean, Can't Swim was a blessing, and it started very quickly, but I started playing in bands when I was like 13 years old, and I have played many nights in front of 5 people, and in front of the other band that played the show. So I definitely feel it, and I definitely understand the grind. The only advice I would give, man, is like just to enjoy what you do and try to surround yourself with musicians that you are inspired by and feel proud to make music with, because you never know. It could take a couple months or it could take a couple years, but you don't want to waste your time doing things with people that you hate or performing music that you don't enjoy. I think it's more important to like what you do way before you have goals of hitting 1 million streams on Spotify. I don't think that stuff only goes so far. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm very proud of the success of what Can't Swim has done, but I'm way more proud, and I find way more enjoyment in making the music with the guys in my band and getting to hang out with them every day. That's the long haul. That's the stuff that really matters. So even if no one gave a fuck about Can't Swim, I still love the songs. I still love the guys in the band. So it goes hand in hand, and I think a lot of people get lost in that, and they say like, oh, man, like I hate these fucking dudes. Like I hate this music, but like, we got this label looking at us, man, and it's gonna take off. It's like, dude, take it from me, like it's not gonna be worth it. Like even if those 50 people in the crowd turn to 500 people, but you're still, doing the same thing that you didn't like, you're not gonna all of a sudden like, oh, I love these guys, I love these songs, just because there's more people in the room. I think it's more important to enjoy what you do way before you think you can like make a career out of it, because it only goes so far.
You sound really happy, and like, I know it's not an act, you genuinely love this band, you're with band members that you love. It's not a case of you're a manufactured band where you're like, who the fuck are these other guys, and you're getting this big paycheck. You're doing it because you want to do it, and I'm not trying to curse you, but I'm sure you're going to go on for years and years and keep releasing albums because you've got the right mix, you've swapped instruments, but you've got this thing that works now, and it would be stupid to kind of fuck it up.
Yeah, man. Like I said again, with my age, like I know how hard it is to have that feeling. I've played in countless bands, man, like, more than I can count, and it's very, very difficult. And then I'm not saying that Can't Swim came easy, and I'm not saying I'm very honored to do what we do, because I know how difficult it is. It's like being married 5 different ways, and you're spending 24 hours with your spouse. Like it's not an easy thing to get along with this amount of people for this long, and I think Can't Swim is stronger than ever. We're getting along, and we're happy, and we're proud of each other. So no, man, it's I hope it doesn't come off precocious or any type of like conceited. I'm not saying we're the best band in the world by any means, but I definitely am confident in the fact that we really do enjoy this, and we all are this age, and we all know what it's like to make music and tour. And with Can't Swim, it's a luxury, man. It feels like vacation, and we've been doing it for 3 years now, so this is not this is my first week on the road, I love these guys. Like,
yeah.
We've definitely slaved it out, and we've had bad nights, and we've had bad tours, and we've had bad things happen, but it's nothing but rewarding and exciting, and every time before we go on stage, I still get the butterflies and the excitement, and everybody pumps each other up. So it's very fascinating, and I feel more and more interested in what the future of Can't Swim has. It's all upward momentum. I feel no regret or wanting to go back to a previous life of mine. I love doing Can't Swim, and I hope we can do it for many more years.
So what is the plan then? Are you looking at already starting to demo and start write stuff for album 3, or are you kind of not there yet?
Yeah, I'm always writing. In between these last 2 tours, I think we had 3 or 4 weeks off, and I crept myself up in an apartment and wrote some demos. And it's something that I love to do and I enjoy to do. So sometimes, it's not like I have this master plan of like, what's LP3 going to sound like? I just like to get my ideas down on paper and flush them out. So, but yeah, there's definitely been new material buzzing about, sound checks, or just acoustic guitars in green rooms. I'm always trying to stay on top of it in a productive manner, and just because I enjoy it. I still kind of feel new to songwriting, so it feels fresh to me, and I always try to get better at it and practice. So yeah, definitely always writing. And
2019 is going to be pretty much the same. Just keep touring, don't have much time off, miss weddings, miss parties, and just be on the road.
We're coming over to England in, what was that, I think, April. Little time off for the holidays, and then we get right back to it. We just put out a new record, so it's time to tour. Hopefully
we'll help to catch up, have a beer or something when you're in the UK.
Yeah, man.
And
we're playing all over that place, so let's hang out.
Sounds good, man. I really appreciate your time today. It's great talking to you. The new album is phenomenal, and I can't wait to see it on stage, man.
Thank you, man. That means a lot to me. Yeah, I'd love to see you at a show.
So there it is. There's my interview with me and Chris from the band Can't Swim. And again, I can't stress enough, this band are absolutely unbelievable. Go and check out their brand new album, This Too Won't Pass. If you have also listened to their previous work, you'll love it, but I think their new album is, for me, their best work so far, and it's the album that made me discover them. I've been listening to it since, and I fall deeper and deeper in love with it every time I listen. It's on Spotify, you can buy their CDs all online, check them out, and the best thing is, right now, as you're listening to this, they have announced a UK tour over the next couple of months, so if you are listening and you want to go and check them out, they're a great live band. I'm really looking forward to seeing them at 2000 Trees Festival, and also they're playing in my hometown in Leicester, so I'm buzzing to see them a couple of times over the next few months. But there's a lot of dates, so go and check them out, and I think you'll be blown away because of their live performance is absolutely awesome. I want to thank the band for coming on today's episode. It's been a great episode, so positive, and it felt like I knew Chris all my life. It's one of those interviews that felt really intimate, and just a great guy, and I can't wait to have a beer with him in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, please keep supporting this podcast. As you heard, it's now going to be weekly, so if that isn't enough to get you to sign up to Patreon, I don't know what is. But I'm giving away some absolutely awesome prizes at the moment. Tracy's been good enough to donate one of her books, which is hand-signed, with a gorgeous print of John Candy done by a good friend of mine, Craig. We've also got some amazing Funko prizes. We've got t-shirts. Whatever I can get my hands on for you guys on Patreon, I'm actually going to make sure that it goes to you guys straight away. All these cool merch, all these cool Funko Pops, anything I can get you, it will be on there. So you can sign up there as little as $1 a month. And for that, you're getting 4 episodes of the podcast. So it's like 25 cents, which is about 16p an episode, which isn't bad, I don't think. Good value for money. But all the money I make from there goes straight back in, gives me... all the money I make on Patreon goes straight back into the podcast. I don't pay myself. It means I can host the podcast, get it on Spotify, all these different sites, but also travel the UK and get all these interviews because I want to keep them coming on a weekly basis for as long as I can. Also, please check me out on markandme.com. There's my Twitter, my Facebook, my Instagram. I reply to every message and I read everything and love it all. Or drop me an email. I love reading them. mark@markandme.com. In the meantime, like I said, check out Can't Swim, an awesome band. Check out their new album, This Too Won't Pass. You won't regret it. If you love it, tag them in. Go on Twitter. Let them know you heard them on this podcast. It all helps. And I'll be back in a week's time with a brand new episode. Take care, everyone.
angels dancing in the deepest oceans, twisting in the water. You're just like a dream. You're just like a dream. Lift me into shape. I must have been asleep for days. Moving lips to breathe her name. I opened up my eyes and found myself alone, alone, alone above a raging sea. I stole the only girl I loved, drowned her deep inside of me. You knew, soft and only you knew. Lost and lonely, you, just like heaven.